Hello, we're going to start the press conference today with the PM of Lithuania, Ingrida Šimonytė, and the Greek Prime Minister, Κυριάκου Μητσοτάκη. Our Prime Minister shall begin. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be hosting the Greek Prime Minister, Mr. Κυριάκου Μητσοτάκη, and I'm really happy that Lithuania and Greece are like-minded countries in respect of the EU agenda, and we're cooperating very intensely in order to reinforce both security and stability in Europe. I would like, first of all, to use this occasion to thank the Prime Minister personally and also all of Greece for the help that they provided Lithuania last year when we were confronted to the hybrid attacks of the Lukashenko's regime using illegal migration. This was a point where we really could, or actually the Greek institutions shared their broad experience and counsels with us, and we got very much support and very much technical support as well. Today, the context is different, and all of Europe lives now in the context of what's the most important today, which is Ukraine's struggle for its territorial integrity. And we couldn't not discuss support for Ukraine and also the means that Russia is putting in place against the supporters of Ukraine, namely energetic blackmail, and we need coordinated action in order to fight this sort of blackmailing and also to mitigate the consequences for our societies and our countries. And it is known that both Lithuania and Greece are feeling the effect through the high prices of energy, and it's no secret. Maybe Lithuania has said repeatedly and warned their colleagues that anything can be used as a weapon, and we can see that energy is being weaponized, as well as food supplies and food. And we know that the goal is very simple, namely to weaken the support for Ukraine and to cause internal conflicts in the countries that are supporting Ukraine, maybe to force the society to hesitate on the support for Ukraine and the governmental support. But we still understand very well what the goals are that are hiding behind these actions. And at the level of the European Union, when we see this, we are trying to come up with contrary solutions in order to help Ukraine in its struggle against Russia, and also to reinforce the European Union and the energetical efficiency of the European Union and its resilience, so that our societies and our energy resources cannot be tampered with. And we share a common ground with Greece in the sense that our response should be as pan-European as possible, because the national means are good to some extent, but it is really important that there isn't any competition between national measures, because this would be problematic for energetic systems, but also to the common European market that we are so proud of. And I am also glad that the package offered by the European Commission contains a reasonable amount of measures that can be assessed positively, and these are the measures that we were aiming for and that are steps in the right direction. But of course, we still need to put in more work for the solutions, namely regarding gas prices, and the capping of those prices be put in place and in a timely fashion. Lithuania and Greece are also NATO partners, and of course, We also collaborate in that format, and together we will put in place the decisions of the Madrid summit of NATO, and next year we can also discuss that in the summit in Vilnius. And I would like to also mention that Lithuania is undoubtedly the country that has been supporting and will continue to support Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic integration, and it is paramount for us that strong support for Ukraine be maintained. It is also very important for us that we share unified thought in the European Union, and that no measures of propaganda or other measures could divide us, because this is the goal of Putin, to sow disconfidence, because this is one of the most important things that let us mobilize such support for Ukraine and make it stronger. And I would like once again to thank the Prime Minister of Greece, and I'm sure that the friendship of our countries is strong, but it needs to get even stronger in the future in the sector of economics and also other sectors in which I believe our cooperation will continue. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister, for this very warm welcome and the productive discussions that we had. And it's a great pleasure to be able to visit Lithuania, particularly as this year we celebrate the centennial of the diplomatic relations between our two countries, relations which are becoming even stronger, as highlighted by frequent and productive visits at all levels. And I think the development of our close relations comes rather naturally, given lots of similarities between our two countries, and despite our geographical distance, Greece and Lithuania face common challenges such as revisionist threats, the energy crisis, the weaponization of migration, to which you referred. But we also share the same European values and principles, and a firm commitment to upholding respect for international law, human rights, and the sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries. We discussed, of course, the blatant Russian invasion into Ukraine, violating the UN Charter, completely disregarding the rules-based international order, and we reaffirmed our commitment to stand by Ukraine along with the rest of our EU partners and all, at least all but one, NATO allies against this aggression. We discussed in detail the latest development in Ukraine, the next steps we should take. We again condemned in the strongest possible terms Russia's latest indiscriminate missile and drone attacks on Ukrainian cities, resulting in the death of innocent civilians and the destruction of critical infrastructure. And we continue to fully support Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. We will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes, and we shall continue to provide not just politically, but also financial, military, and humanitarian support to the Ukrainian people. I had the opportunity to also brief the Prime Minister on the situation in the Eastern Mediterranean and the continuous tensions provoked by Turkey in the Aegean, and through actions and an escalatory rhetoric that unfortunately undermines the stability and security in the whole region. And I think here again we see a case of how a revisionist rhetoric can undermine regional stability at a time when The last thing we need is another source of tension in the Eastern Mediterranean, especially between two NATO allies. As I've repeatedly undermined, Greece always, Prime Minister, maintains an open window for dialogue, but we keep the door firmly shut to challenges and threats, especially when those pertain to our national sovereignty. And unfortunately, as regards the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, Turkey considers that it does not need to choose a side, as if there is no right or wrong. Seems to be okay for Turkey to be providing arms for Ukraine while accommodating Russia's economic interest and disregarding EU sanctions. And I think we need to make sure we've done so at the level of the European Council to call upon all countries, especially those countries that aspire, at least in words, to become members of a European family, to align themselves with the decisions we have taken. As we've discussed, sanctions do work. They impose a heavy penalty on the Russian economy. And the more we tighten the screws on those countries that facilitate Russia to bypass the sanctions, the more effective the sanctions that we have imposed will be. As the Prime Minister said, we've also discussed the most complicated and difficult question regarding the weaponization of energy by Russia, especially the very high gas prices. And I'm very happy that we have worked very closely with Lithuania, both at our level but also at the level of our ministers of energy, in coming up with very specific and concrete solutions that can help us bring down the price of gas to acceptable levels. And my hope is that these measures will be agreed at the level of the ministers of energy in order to reduce the pressure that we all face in terms of providing support for businesses and households from our budget. We are all doing that. We all spend a significant amount of money, a significant percentage of our GDP to provide support. But a European solution has been long, in my mind, has been long overdue. And this is really the time to send a very clear signal, both to Russia but also to the markets, that speculation in the gas market will be addressed in a unified manner by the European Union by imposing some sort of cap on the TTF index, as we've discussed by now in excruciating detail, even at our level, at the level of heads of state and government. Last but not least, both Lithuania and Greece face similar challenges when addressing the problem of weaponizing migrants to put political pressure on our countries. We have a very good and strong cooperation in the field of migration, and I think we always need to make the case that we cannot, in principle, accept the fact that desperate people are being used, are being weaponized for political purposes. Greece will continue to defend its borders, which are also the borders of the European Union. We're always ready to offer humanitarian support to people, especially people whose lives are in danger at sea. And we will always call on our neighbors, especially Turkey, to cooperate constructively to address this problem. And in that respect, I think we have lots in common in terms of designing our approach when it comes to border management and border security. Prime Minister, thank you again for the very warm welcome to Vilnius.
Hello, Greece Prime Minister. You mentioned relations between Turkey and Russia, and my question is regarding this initiative from Baltic states to initiate a special tribunal for Russia's aggression in Ukraine. Are you in support of this suggestion? Lietuvos premjerė į vyriausybę vėl atkeliavo siūlymas dėl neriboto PVM.
Lithuanian Prime Minister, we have received a proposition about limited VAT VAT tax. Do you believe that some compromise can be reached in this sector, and if so, in which sectors, and also if you can say about the tribunal? I might start. I have told my colleague that since we have a really tight schedule, I will not talk about national politics. Let's leave these questions for when we have more time, so I can give more time for the Greek Prime Minister.
If war crimes are committed and there's reasonable, enough evidence to suggest that this is the case, I will say that those who have committed those crimes need to be held accountable. I think this is a position with which I think all members of the European Council agree, and that is also why there was a reference to this topic at the level of the conclusions of the European Council.
But are you in support of this instrument of special tribunal?
In principle, it is something we are examining, and as I told you, we want to make sure that those who have perpetrated war crimes will be held accountable.
Dėkojame ir kolegės iš Graikijos klausimas.
A question for the Prime Minister of Lithuania and for Prime Minister Mitsotakis. Mrs. Šimonytė, your country has supported the Greek proposal, along with other countries, for the need to adopt a gas price cap in order to limit spikes in prices and protect citizens and businesses from excessive energy prices. Following the last Council decisions, how optimistic are you that a European solution can be reached soon as the next Energy Minister Council at the end of November?
Well, I think the fact that there was an agreement to have this discussion about the practical arrangements brings optimism. And of course, it is a thing that needs our experts to discuss for roughly the modalities, but I think the time is good. Time is right to look for this solution as soon as possible. So definitely, given that Lithuania was supportive of this idea from the beginning these tensions in the energy markets, given that there is a vicious circle between gas prices and electricity prices, and even if a country is not using lots of gas for electricity production, it still faces the consequences in terms of very high electricity prices, because this is the most expensive source of production. And of course, this creates a very weird situation where some of producers are getting insane profits because they do not have any changes in their costs, but the others do not have this privilege, namely because they use gas. So of course there is a need for normalization, because the prices are, well, far from what I would call economic fundamentals. And that's why a solution like this, a temporary solution, might bring also some predictability to the market. So of course we are very supportive for this practical work, and I hope that will mature in results by the end of this month.
Yeah, if I may add, we've been arguing for many months now that, as the Prime Minister said, effectively the gas market is broken. Yeah. These excessive prices, TTF going up to 350, euros per megawatt hours, never reflected the fundamentals of the market, and hence, in extraordinary instances, market intervention is actually mandated. It is a necessary tool to address both the Russian effort to weaponize gas and the speculators who are making a lot of money on the gas market. We are cautiously optimistic that a solution will be found. I would be slightly more blunt. It will be a failure if our energy ministers don't succeed to agree, because then the problem will be returned to the level of the heads of state and government represented at the European Council. And this is a technical discussion which frankly needs to take place and needs to be agreed at the level of the ministers of energy. I think the solutions that have been designed by our experts address the concerns of those countries which always place security of supply above the questions of price. Those concerns have been addressed. You know, storages are currently full. If anything, there's no space to put right now the additional gas. And now that the TTF has rebalanced towards a more acceptable level, still very expensive, but at least not extremely expensive, now is the time to put in place such an instrument. And again, I would like to thank Lithuania for the excellent cooperation we've had also on the technical level in coming up with a solution that is going to benefit everyone. Because right now, with the very high gas prices, the only ones who are benefiting are those who are selling us gas much higher than they sell it elsewhere, and of course the speculators that are betting on a market which is fluctuating way more wildly than any market has any right to fluctuate.
Dėkojame ministrams pirmininkams, dėkojame stebėjusiems, linkime gražios dienos.
Thank you, ministers. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.